Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Ravening, a.k.a. Aamis, is an Indian horror film from 2019. This is a movie this is the kind of horror film I was hoping to discover out of India. I searched and I keep searching for, I like a dark, grounded horror film, right? The other horror films I've watched from India are all great. Don't get me wrong. The majority, almost every film I've seen out of India, it has been amazing. But there's a type of horror film that I'm really a fan of, and that is one that is definitely grounded. I guess some people may call them elevated horror films. More of an independent vibe to it than, not monsters and supernatural stuff. That stuff is fine, don't get me wrong. But I really do enjoy kind of seeing something that's grounded in reality and seeing horrific things and seeing how humans have the potential to be monsters themselves. So I was pleasantly surprised to come across the description of this movie, which how it was described was it was very controversial. It's a movie that's supposed to have similar vibes to the 80s horror films that were part of the video nasties, part of the movies that were almost illegal to watch, right? Maybe a Cannibal Holocaust type of a movie, which I'm a fan of that movie as well. Brutal movie. I would say that movie is far more brutal than this one, but this one is definitely grounded. And this is a movie that I absolutely loved. If you like a grounded horror film, I would highly psychological. I'd highly recommend this. Now I'm gonna try not to spoil it. This movie for the first hour is really a movie about two people forming a bond over food. Right? It's a married woman who has an unfulfilling marriage. Her husband is always out of town. He is kind of part of this Doctors Beyond Borders type of a deal. She herself is a doctor, but has a local private practice that she works out of her home, out of a clinic that's I think near her home or part the lower level of her home. And she helps this one kid one day whose friend has an upset stomach, helps him out, and she finds out that he's part of this quote-unquote meat club where, because they are unsatisfied with modern day ways meat are kind of every aspect of how people get meat currently, with factory farming, the processing, all the aspects of it. It's a club where they basically will acquire a live animal, they'll slaughter the animal themselves, butcher it themselves, cook it themselves, and then enjoy it. So it's a club where they can appreciate meat and appreciate these animals in a way that you really only get if you're a hunter and you're harvesting animals from the wild. And as she learns about this, she's interested, and she doesn't accept any kind of payment for her helping their friend who is a vegetarian and just went a little bit crazy eating meat for the first time. He was just indigestion. So she doesn't accept any payment, but instead offers to accept payment in meat. So the next time they have their meat club, just bring her a portion. Right? And that's how this kind of friendship starts. And it's this friendship that turns into more of a bond. It's as much of a romantic relationship as you can be with two people who never touch each other. There is no physical contact between either of them. She is zero desire to be unfaithful to her husband. She has a friend that she kind of helps cover for. Her friend is not faithful to her. She's kind of she covers up her friend's infidelity. And she doesn't want she doesn't want to go down that path herself. So their bond is purely platonic and focused around food, where this kid who is a PhD, he's going for his PhD, studying cultures who eat different kinds of foods. So this is something that he's passionate about, food and eating meat and eating different animals and experimenting. And with that, his knowledge opens her mind to trying new things, to trying meats and foods that are, a bit taboo. The act of eating meat, the act of eating flesh has kind of maybe an erotic type of nature to it. Definitely she's trying new types of food that she wouldn't do. Maybe types of food that would be forbidden. Culturally, different cultures think it's acceptable to eat certain foods where others don't. An example of that would be some cultures have no problem eating dog or cat meat, whereas obviously Western civilizations, that would be horrific. Some cultures would never eat cow. A lot of India is vegetarian, and they don't eat any meat. So that's part of this thing where even though it's not a sexual relationship, it's definitely a relationship that is taking her out of her comfort zone, opening her mind to new experiences. And this guy is a guy who's been afraid to fall in love, afraid to get into a relationship. And for some reason, this scenario is something that speaks to him, and he is attracted to this platonic relationship. And you see, like, the first hour is no horror film involved at all in this first hour of this film. And it's only like an hour and 50 minutes, right? So the second half of the film, there's a turn that happens about halfway through, let's say. But the first half is just these people kind of forming their bond, going, them, talking over the phone, texting each other, him taking her to go eat these new kinds of meat. Like one night he takes her to this place that serves bat meat, which was kind of the most exotic. The first dish he gives her as payment for helping his friend is some rabbit meat that he got. And so it's very platonic. It's very, but still, like, even food, there's kind of a sensual type of a thing when it comes to food anyway. And she's very particular about eating her food. She doesn't eat with her hands. She always insists on using silverware. So it's like, even in the way she consumes food, she puts up boundaries. She puts up restrictions on how she consumes. With this relation, she puts up restrictions on how close, right? She doesn't want to cheat on him. Not only because of mostly societal pressure, right? She doesn't want to be her friend who's cheating on her husband. She, in some ways, feels morally superior because of that. In a similar way, using silverware, she's a germaphobe. She is a doctor, so she is afraid of, in using her hands, maybe cross-contamination and things like that. So much of this, and it's great. This is like, it's a simple movie where you're seeing these characters get to know each other. You're seeing this bond form. Like, this kid is excited about introducing this woman to new foods. She's excited because she's opening her mind to new things. She's trying new things. She's being adventurous. She's getting to know this guy more, who's sparks her interest. He's very knowledgeable about the foods that he's into. He's able to express his passion over food to her in a way that's intoxicating for her in some ways. So despite her being fine with, in some ways, being part of this meat club, she doesn't want to join her friend in the Cheaters Club, let's say. Despite the fact that even though, like, there's even a part where her husband comes home and she invites this kid over, which the kid's name, let me get his name. Her name is Nirmali, and his name is Suman. Suman, I think. And so she invites him over to dinner. They're have a dinner party. A lot of people are over. Her husband's in town. So she invites this guy that she tells her husband about it because it's just been a platonic friendship. Invites him over. Of course, Suman, nervous, maybe drinks a little bit too much. Clearly has feelings for Nirmali. Nirmali? Yeah. Clearly has feelings for her. She's an older woman. She likes these foods that he's giving her. Like he definitely, but also respects the fact that she has these boundaries, respects the fact that she eats with silverware, respects the fact that she doesn't want to take this relationship necessarily any farther than a platonic one. They share food. They share a love of food together. But she doesn't want to cross over. And even her friend is there at this dinner party, and she's like, you better be careful. The way he looks at you, you can tell he's got eyes for you. And you could tell her husband's like a nice guy, but clearly prioritizes his work over his family. And he's doing good things. He's going to impoverished places, helping to eradicate disease. But so he's not like a bad guy, but it's also clear that she wants more. She wants him to be around. She wants to be in a relationship with him, and he's not willing to stay. He's more devoted to his career. And they make excuses, like even when he's in town, she starts making excuses like her friend. You know, her friend who was cheating on her husband would call her and be like, I need you to, if anybody asks, we were at a play together. We were out to a movie. And there's a time where when her husband's home and he's getting ready to leave again, she's like, screw this. I'm going to go hang out with my friend Simone, and we're going to, you know, and she has her friend tell the excuse, hey, if he asks, we're out to a movie or whatever. We're out to a play. So in some ways, she's acting as if she's having a sexual affair with this guy, but she's not. They still haven't even touched their hands. She hasn't, like, he is like over several instances, the idea of, like, there's many close-ups of his hand and him wanting to just touch pinkies, right? Just to touch her hand. Like there's this like constant tension of his just desire to have just the smallest physical contact with this woman, but doesn't do it, never does it. Which adds to the overall tension between them, because it's like there's clearly an attraction there, but they never, same way with the food, like she never touches the food. Her hands never make contact with the food. It's always, the only time the food touches her at all is when it's in her mouth. And also this guy, like we find out about this kid that from one of his friends is that they always thought he was afraid to love somebody, but then maybe because of the restrictions, because this relationship is being forced to be platonic, that's why he's willing to finally open up. Right? This is only because of the parameters of it being a platonic relationship that he's actually able to open himself up to actually falling for somebody. And then there's a dream sequence. His buddy, Saman is at his buddy. He's like his buddy is a veterinarian, or he's going to school to be a vet. And he's doing something with a dog. I don't know if he's doing an autopsy on the dog or surgery or what. But Suman, waiting for his friend to be done, falls asleep, and he has this dream. And it's very art, like something that if you were walking into an art gallery and you saw a projector up and it's just playing like this art house type of imagery. It's very surreal, like imagery of a dream that he's having. Kind of like erotic, but not showing anything, like maybe showing a torso, curtains blowing in the breeze, superimposed images. Very beautifully, artistically done dream. Very erotic, but not overt. Not overtly sexual. But definitely has that vibe of this dream of clearly, and then like images of her face. It's like clearly like a very lustful dream that he's having about Nirmali. I feel like I'm pronouncing her name wrong. And this dream is the turning point of this film. Okay, so if you don't want to be spoiled, maybe you know where it's going, maybe you read a synopsis, but this is the point that I don't want to spoil.
Let's take a little break from the show to promote.
If you sign up for Inspired Disorder Plus for 1 year specifically, you get a free painting. So a year subscription of Inspired Disorder Plus is $50. The painting, the majority of them are $100. So it's a $150 value signing up for 1 year of Inspired Disorder Plus. So not only do you get a free painting, but you also are subscribed to Plus for a year, which means that you can binge this show, The Ray Taylor Show, ad-free, the full week, ad-free, available on Monday. You also get discounts that are members-only pricing type of deals. All of the podcasts that I've produced in the past, close to 20 different podcasts I've produced, hundreds of episodes. There's also my personal blog. You can ask me anything if you want to start podcasting or get into art. All of that stuff available in addition to a free painting when you sign up to 1 year subscription of Inspired Disorder Plus.
Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. And now let's get back to the show.
Right? Because even that first hour where they're getting to, it's great. It's a great movie. I don't really spoil anything necessarily. But after this dream, there's a turn. Things start to go sideways a bit. Okay, so spoilers. I highly recommend watching this movie. Check it out. You can find it streaming. It's not available on platforms. I think there was one platform. But if you search, you can find this movie. Maybe because of the controversy of what happens in the second half. I've seen worse, but I could see how this very grounded movie, almost like a drama, romance type of a movie. Basically two people, amazing acting, amazing performances. Like the tension that is there exists. It is 100. I am in this movie. I am existing in this movie. I am 100% on board. Everything that happens. And then Suman wakes up from this erotic type of a dream. This dream where he's clearly lusting after this woman. He wakes up and he tells his friend, I have an idea. I know what I'm going to do. Spoilers. He tells his friend, I'm going to feed her my flesh. Of course, his friend just laughs it off. It's like, what? Okay. But you see where this movie is going now. And it's a grounded, real take, which I absolutely love, which makes this movie, right? It doesn't turn crazy. It stays grounded the whole time. But the path is just as devastating. He wakes up, I got this idea. I'm going to feed her my flesh, which technically is the only time she has touched any other flesh is when she has consumed it. She doesn't touch it with her hands when she eats it. She doesn't touch him in any way. There has been zero physical contact. But he loves introducing her to new foods. In some ways, even metaphorically, it makes sense for him to consume. So much of love is about somebody consuming the desire metaphorically to consume somebody you're so passionate about. Probably similar ideas that inspired vampires, right? There's that kind of lustful predator prey type of a thing. Wakes up, has this idea, and it's at that moment, it's like, even though I knew the synopsis and kind of forgot, like almost thought I was watching a different movie, and then he says that, I'm like, oh, here we go. This is where it turns into a horror film. Nothing has been horrific unless you think somebody eating an animal that wouldn't necessarily be consumed. Let me just say, they don't eat dogs or cats in this movie. Bat was like the craziest thing so far. But he wakes up, he has this idea, and it's like, oh, we're getting going now. This is where the rubber's going to hit the road. And it's the only way he can think of to like get close, to like have a physical bond in some way. So, and his friend, kind of a doctor, not really. His friend is a vet, right? He's got all of the stuff, scalpels, painkillers, things to numb him up. So his friend, and he like does all this research. Suman is a smart guy. He does all of this research. He has this idea, stays up all night, and then tries to beg his friend. It's like, I need you to do this thing for me. Just cut a little piece of flesh. I looked it up. You can do it. It's fine. Just take it from here. Take it from one of my thighs, It's excess. Just take a little chunk. Right? Convinces him. Doesn't tell him what he's going to do. Right? I'm going to do experiments. I'm trying to do some experiments, so I just need this sample. Right? Just a small sample. And he gets this sample, and it's a scene, the way it's shot of him preparing this dish is a shot you would see in the most well-produced show or movie about food. Like, the preparation is done with so much love and so much care. Like, he is a Michelin star chef creating a high-end dish. And the meat, the protein of that dish just happens to be a chunk of his thigh. Right? Produces this, and it's like, oh, he's going to do this thing. Doesn't tell her. Gives her the dish. They have like this little thermos type of a container that he's been giving her all of these foods, So he gives her this thing. She goes home. It's like, okay, I'll try this. Like, oh, we left this dish for you. Let me try this dish. And it's like, it looks like deviled eggs almost, but in the filling inside the egg white is like the small bits of meat cooked with other things, right? It's not just a little slab of meat, right? It's in a dish. She doesn't know what she's eating. It's like, he makes good food. He has good taste. All these meats taste so good. I'm excited to try this thing. She eats this thing, and it's like she has this look of like, this is amazing. This is delicious. This is absolutely delicious. And she loves it. It tastes so good. Doesn't know what she's eating. They meet later, next day, whatever, however long it's been. And he's nervous because he's going to tell her what he's done. And he does. And she walks out immediately. Walks out. Disgusted. Walks out. But the look on her face is like, right? She's disgusted. She knows she should be disgusted. She's acting as somebody should act when they find out that they just ate human flesh. and she's doing those things, but there's also this, like, performances are great because she's doing those things, but you know that on some level she likes it, and it's like this deep down her, like, actual love for what she ate, and kind of understanding on some level the gesture of what he's doing, right? They can't have a physical relationship. So this is, like, on some level how they're bonding, how they're physically bonding, how she's literally consuming him. So there's, like, that thought is kind of coming through her initial reaction of how she feels she should act when told that she's eaten human flesh. She even she ate the dish a night before. She's a doctor. She understands how digestion works. She even tries to, like, throw up. She retches over the railing as she's walking away. But she knows it's way too late. She's not going to be able to throw it up. She's already consumed. It's way too late for that. But she's kind of going through the motions of how somebody would act when confronted with the information that she just ate human flesh. But overwhelmingly, she's able to put that aside, and she's able to realize that she's okay with it. And then there's, like, a montage of him going back to his friend and getting more chunks. And you see, like, these chunks of flesh kind of being dropped into these sterile little cups that samples go into for scientific purposes that are in, like, a solution or whatever. You know? Because his friend doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what kind of experiments he's doing. He doesn't know he's literally feeding himself those chunks of flesh to this woman that he has a thing for, that he still hasn't. The only physical touch has been his skin that is no longer attached to his body, cooked with love, and then her eating it. And there's, like, a montage of him giving her these different dishes. And it is shot like a movie that is a romantic, dramatic movie about food. Not as if it's, you know, this woman going down the rabbit hole of cannibalism. And it gets to a point where she gets addicted and she says, I feel as if I've tasted the fundamental flavor of life. And this has made me forever hungry. That's how she describes eating human flesh. She is addicted. And these small portions that it's becoming more difficult for him to continuously cut away, that he can't satiate her hunger. She wants larger portions.
Let's take a little break from the show to promote gift certificates.
If you want to purchase artwork for somebody, you have an art lover in your life, and you think they would like my art, but you don't know what painting to get them. I have over 2,000 original pieces of art for sale in my store, along with shirts and prints and other things. So I can understand that being a bit daunting if you're trying to buy something for somebody else. Give them the gift certificate, and then they can go to my website, inspireddisorder.com, and they can buy whatever paintings they want. They can buy whatever prints they want. They can buy t-shirts. They can buy hats. They can buy all the different merch. Gift certificates, which are available currently at inspireddisorder.com.
And now let's get back to the show.
Meanwhile, she repays him by cooking him a dish that she's a doctor. She cut a chunk of her calf out and cooked a dish for him. But when he ate it, and then he ate it in front of her, and then when she shows the bandage on her leg, he acted automatically how humans would act when they find out they just ate something that they probably shouldn't have ate, and he goes and actually throws it up. It wasn't like a day later. He couldn't bring himself to eat her meat, where she has at this point become addicted to him. And also she kind of feels insulted in some ways that he won't, like it's only a one-way street. But she tries. It's not like she's just a taker and he's a giver, right? She tries to repay him with a dish from her flesh, but he can't bring himself. He loves the idea of her eating his flesh, and the other way, he can't bring himself to do it. But then she gets addicted. Then she says, I feel as if I've tasted the fundamental flavor of life, and this has made me forever hungry. Real food does nothing to her anymore. Does not fill her up. Does not quench her hunger. Human meat. She's become addicted to human meat. So much so where this is like where it's like so much of this is like a movie about addiction. Right? This could be a movie about heroin. This could be a movie about, fentanyl. This could be a movie about any of the highly addictive substances. Gambling. This could be like alcohol. Like this is a movie about somebody who gets addicted to a substance and then goes to desperate measures when they can't get what they want. Right? But it's done in human flesh, which makes it horror. It is an addiction movie about cannibalism, and it's horror. Beautifully done. Desperation. Tries to sneak him in. She's like, at one point, he's like, I'm going to give her my toe. I'm going to cut a toe off. She wants more meat. I can cut a toe. What do I need a toe for? Most of my work, once I get this degree, it's going to be mostly desk work anyway. I don't need a toe. And that's when his friend is like, I'm no longer doing this. He found out that he's been cooking in his hostel. He found out that he's been cooking his own flesh. And he's like, I am not going to participate in this anymore. You are on your own. Right? They get in a fight. I'm not helping you anymore. Right? So on some level, he has part of an addiction as well. He's her dealer in some ways, but he's addicted to that, getting off on giving her himself. And he can't do it now. But then he finds out she's addicted, and she's trying to come up with ways. Sneaks him into the hospital. They go down to the morgue, and she's like, here, get a piece of the arm, get a piece of the leg, big chunks, like this is a body, came in, it's fresh. Right? She's getting desperate. And he wants to do anything. He would do anything for her. He's like, we can't do this. This is bad. This is not going to end well. But she won't. She can't. She's fiending for it. Right? She's not thinking clearly. And he wants to help. He wants to be that guy for her. So he goes, and you see him. The performances in this movie are so good. Right? You see him go out of town to try and harvest some meat. He's going hunting. We can't do the morgue thing. There's cameras everywhere. I'll figure something out, right? And while he's doing this, he gets caught. And it's not an easy process. He's not a professional killer. He's not he's in the process of trying to get meat for this woman. He gets caught by the police. And she's waiting for him and texting him. So now the police know what's going on, and they're like, what is this shit? You were cutting up a body. This woman, clearly, they have all of these texts as proof. And then the next morning, after she drops her kid off at the bus. Police show up with a warrant. There's a news crew right there as well. Ma'am, would you like to talk about these allegations that you're a cannibal? You're responsible for this guy who was found being chopped up. You working with this guy that killed somebody and was chopping him up. You want to speak into the mic, lady? As you're being put into the cop car. Also, the police very polite to people, right? She didn't cuff her, didn't throw her against the ground. They just kind of like grabs, here's your warrant, grab her hand, and put her in the bus. And it's pretty much done, right? And you see the fallout from this because the news, her husband knows, her friends know, her kid knows, his friends know, his friend that's the vet found out. He goes and they're like, they found one of his little test things for the sample. So he's like, oh, he's going to be part of this as well, right? It all comes crashing down. It's like when you're watching, you're like, oh my God, it's all done, right? Because on some level, it's a horror movie. So on some level, you're like, you almost hope that he's going to be successful and getting her meat. It's horrible. You almost hope that he's like, oh, he comes back with like these big chunks of meat. And she finally gets to eat. But no, it's like grounded, and you're like, oh my God. And they do this thing where like after their interrogations or whatever, they put bags over their heads to bring them out so the public can see them, so the news can see them, kind of like a public shaming, almost similar in some ways, I guess, to how some Asian countries will have the criminals who are convicted of a crime reenact their crimes in public for public scrutiny. So they bring these two out in bags, standing in this doorway as like camera crews, and you hear news reels, you hear these anchors talking about, this is disgusting, cannibalism, they have completely destroyed the name of this city, the world is going to think different of us now because of this whole tragedy. And there's this sweet thing that happens at the very end of this movie where they're both standing there. They're going to jail forever. I don't know what kind of punishment they'll get. It's not going to be good, right? It's not going to be good. But there is this kind of love story underneath the depravity of this movie. And there's this scene at the very end where she reaches out, because they're standing side by side. She reaches out and then touches his hand. The first time they've ever touched. The first physical touch, aside from her eating him and him trying to eat her, like the first time they touch hands and then they hold hands as like both of their lives are pretty much done. It's kind of like a romantic end to it, despite the cannibalism, right? I love this movie so much. Like, one of my favorite horror movies. Kind of reminded me of Raw in some ways. Raw goes a different direction, but still has that kind of cannibal aspect to it. Grounded type of a movie. But yeah, this movie was amazing. I spoiled the hell out of it. But yeah, it's amazing. The first time they ever physically touch each other is when she goes to hold his hand when their lives are both horrible. And I'm sure at that moment, on some level, he was elated. He's like, finally. Like, I can die now. I finally took this thing to the next level. It's crazy. I love this movie. I highly recommend checking it out. Ravening. Indian film. My favorite Indian horror film so far. It also goes by the title Aamis, Aamis. But if you just search Ravening, Ravening, just Google Ravening, streaming, free. I don't know. There's websites. Or buy it. It's a great movie. Check it out.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out. Rage!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.